Number 10 is Doom's Mutants. Slag, Nerium, Volta, Ironcloak, and the Dreamer. 5 new mutants revealed to us for the first time in the 29th issue of the current Fall of X-Men run. But while the rest of the mutant population is scattered, imprisoned, in the White Hot Room, on Mars, or otherwise not having a very good time, these 5 mutants are sitting pretty in Latveria under the direction and protection of Dr. Victor Von Doom. This is Dr. Doom's mutant team, and they are very capable. A small group of X-Men, Wolverine, Shadowcat aka Kitty Pryde, and the newly revealed mutant Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, went into Latveria to liberate these mutants, only to find themselves getting completely clobbered. The 2 twins, Dreamer and Ironcloak, can enter dreams and grant invulnerability, respectively. Volta can seemingly control potent amounts of electricity or lightning, and she directs and controls this with a vibranium spear, which she used to block and fry one of Wolverine's claw arms. Slag is a massive bruiser because every team's gotta have one, and essentially his skin is rock and his blood is magma, and he looks awesome. And last but not least is Nerium, who has 4 arms that are seemingly made of plant life that she can control, creating vines and healing and all that jazz. Now, we haven't seen these mutants at full power yet, and there are 2 that haven't been revealed to us yet, but they seemingly may be allies despite being allied with Dr. Doom, so we shall see. Number 9, Chakal. Switching over to the DC comic universe here, most people know Lobo. And if you don't, he's basically like Jason Momoa mixed with Gene Simmons from Kiss with the makeup and everything. He comes from a race known as the Zarnians, and these guys have extremely high levels of regeneration, being able to recover from just droplets of their own blood. Lobo himself is an extremely capable bounty hunter with strength on par with Superman, and he's effectively immortal. But for the longest time, he also believed himself to be the very last of the Zarnians. Well, in 2023's Superman Volume 6, issue number 7, it turns out there's a whole army of Zarnians led by one General Chakal. Chakal's army were so violent and psychotic that Zarnia had erased them from their own history books. They were somehow captured by Brainiac, who miniaturized them and imprisoned them in a bottle city, where they promptly began fighting each other. Chakal eventually agreed for his people to serve as Brainiac's shock troops in exchange for their own freedom. Number 8, the Stark Sentinels. Now, it's safe to say that this entry isn't exactly a villain. It's more like the tool of a villain, or more specifically, an organization. As part of the Fall of X event that is going on right now in Marvel Comics, anti-mutant industrialist Fei Long embedded himself in Tony Stark / Iron Man's company, Stark Unlimited, and essentially stole the company. He then secretly funneled its resources into the construction of new mutant hunting sentinels, which are based on the technology of the Iron Man armor, taking advantage of Tony Stark's recent divestment from the company. Now, first appearing in Invincible Iron Man Volume 5, issue number 5 from April 2023, one of the first Sentinels chased off Tony Stark in his own Iron Man armor, showing its power. Now later on, another Sentinel was sent to New York City where it helped to contain a fire, only for the machine to target a firefighter who happened to also be a mutant. This brought the Sentinel into conflict with the X-Men, where it showed it was very capable but still fallible, as the mutant magic was able to cut it to pieces and Jean Grey was able to crush it. But now, with hundreds of these Sentinels running around, and with Orcus having organized a brutal weakening of the mutant race, the Stark Sentinels pose a huge problem for the mutants.
Number 7, Captain Marvel takes charge. Captain Marvel recently took over the Avengers as the new team leader, and I am loving it. In the first issue of Avengers from 2023, Carol was introduced as the new captain of the team, after having been elected in basically like a poll by card-carrying Avengers roster members. Tony gave Carol the news and she started to assemble her team, and I'm pretty here for who she picked, honestly. Although I would have loved to see her pick Spider-Woman, I still think, overall, she made some great selections for who would be joining her on the Avengers this time around. I especially really love her pick for Vision and her reasoning behind it. You should check out the first issue. That's all I'm saying. Just the first issue at least.
Next up at number 6 is Tony Stark, Kang the Conqueror. Kang is here to crash the party in his stunning new Iron Man suit, and I just couldn't wait to talk about it. His bold new look is revealed on a variant cover of Ultimate Invasion number 4, which is set to release September 27th. In this altered reality, the Maker, which is an alternate Reed Richards, wields time travel to reshape the world to his liking, erasing heroes like the Fantastic Four and leaving villains to power. Yet challenges emerge, including including a time-traveling army modeled after the Avengers like Thor and Captain America. Here, Iron Man is Howard Stark, and the maker suspects him of creating a powerful time machine, setting the stage for a clash with Kang. But who's under the Kang mask here? Possibilities are abound as Ultimate Invasion charts its own path free from established lore. The answer lies within these pages, promising an exciting twist in the Marvel saga. There was already a lot of speculation with the release of Ultimate Invasion 3 that Tony himself would be revealed as some sort of Kang the Conqueror variant, and this new look might just prove that theory. But we'll just have to wait for issue 4 to drop to find out.
Number 5. Limbo comes to Earth, but not in the manner that you would expect. In the last few years in the comics, in the pages of New Mutants, we've seen Limbo get a new ruler in the form of Madeline Pryor's Goblin Queen. Magic wasn't overthrown or anything like that. She actually chose to relinquish her metaphorical crown and step down from her place as ruler, passing on the responsibility to Maddie. This was because Maddie had basically convinced her that she was ultimately ready to turn over a new leaf. Then Dark Web happened, and some of the character development was kind of rescinded, but by the end of that event, ultimately restored, with Jean Grey sharing her memories of raising baby Christopher, aka Nathan Summers, aka Cable, with Maddie. In the end, Maddie decided to step into the light, bringing her realm of often unwanted demons with her, so that finally, those forced to hide in the darkness could be seen and accepted by the world. Kind of a beautiful little moral there. She did this by bringing the realm of Limbo to New York City with her Limbo Embassy. Now, that should make for an interesting change to the NYC skyline.
Next up at number 4, we've got Carnage versus the Venoms of the Multiverse. It took 3 issues for this version of the Carnage to finally see a setback in his plan to eliminate every alternate version of Venom in the multiverse. It's a really badass series with a lot of good subplots, but let's just get to the main course. The Carnage symbiote, now unshackled from his bond to Cletus Cassidy and endowed with new demonic abilities, rampages across the multiverse, relentlessly hunting down countless versions of Venom. Enter the intriguing Venom Man-Thing, seen in the newest release in number 4, a fusion of the Venom symbiote and Theodore Salas, also known as the Man-Thing. This mysterious creature boasts the extraordinary powers of strength and interdimensional teleportation to corrosive acid touch with both physical and mystical properties. Even more captivating, the Man-Thing's dominion over plant life takes a unique twist when merged with the symbiote. As the demise of the Venomverse unfolds in issue 3, the Man-Thing, tainted by Venom's influence, becomes a symbiote ecosystem of epic proportions. Capable of growing to kaiju-like sizes and telepathically controlling plant life, its powers seem limitless. The stakes are high as Carnage confronts the Venom Man-Thing, and the fusion of the Venom symbiote and the Man-Thing's incredible abilities paints a grim picture of a world ensnared in chaos, offering a thriving narrative that fans don't want to miss.
Number 3. End of an era. I think one of the wildest changes we are seeing coming to Marvel Comics this year, and likely continuing into next in terms of the fallout, is the end of the Krakoan era. I'll never be ready to say goodbye, and it's seriously super sad to see happening in the comics, but that's where we're at. The decline of Krakoa has been building up for a while, I would say since last year, and I suppose we should be happy that we even got this much of it, considering that it was supposed to end a long time ago in terms of Jonathan Hickman's plans, but still, I didn't even want it to end. I never want it to end. It's such a beautiful time. However, with the cataclysmic events of the 2023 Hellfire Gala, the last Hellfire Gala possibly ever, still bummed that I couldn't get a ticket to the SDCC Hellfire Gala this year, it's clear that this period of X-Men history is drawing to a close. I just don't know how we're going to return to the status quo after all this, though.
At number 2, Wilson Fisk owns the Hellfire Club. See, Wilson Fisk is no longer the Kingpin. He's passed the villainous torch to his son during Devil's Reign, reshaping the criminal landscape. However, Fisk isn't fading away. He's embraced a new persona in the invincible Iron Man number 9, shaking things up. Fisk, who sought Krakoan citizenship through marriage, now looms as a potential threat during the X-Men's turbulent times, teased in the Fall of X. Brace yourself for a dark and impactful shift in the X-Men narrative, with the Kingpin of the Hellfire Club at the antithesis of the X-Men's headaches.
Number 1. It's about to get ultimate. The Ultimate Universe has once more returned. We at Top 10 Nerd have been anticipating this return since the days of 2020. Remember all those videos we did about Ultimate? It's because we thought it was coming back then. But it's coming back now! Finally, the time is nigh. It's happening. Jonathan Hickman has returned to Marvel to bring back the Ultimate Universe by having the Maker become free from his prison in 616 with a trajectory set to return home. He not only does this, but he is then tasked with rebuilding the entire universe after it was wiped from existence during the Secret Wars era. So it's not just a return to Ultimates, but it's a return to Ultimates as imagined by Evil Reed Richards, aka the maker of Earth 1610 original.
At number 10 is the Hulk vs. Cthulhu. The Incredible Hulk number 3 has delivered a colossal showdown that's got everyone buzzing. In the latest issue, we witnessed the unimaginable as the Hulk throws down with none other than the Eldritch Terror itself, Cthulhu. That's right, you heard me correctly. Hulk vs. Cthulhu. Now, I've got to admit, we're only 3 issues deep into this story, and the Hulk literally just punched Cthulhu itself, and I'm absolutely here for it. Now, while the series as a whole might not be the same as the classic Immortal Hulk, where we explore the complex duality of Banner and the Hulk, it certainly combines the eerie horror elements of Immortal with the epic monster battles that the Hulk lore is known for. The big green question, of course, is whether this clash of the ages will stand the test of time as we venture further into the series. But for now, let's relish in the sheer spectacle of the Hulk taking on one of Lovecraft's most fearsome creations. It's a new Marvel edition that's got fans like me eagerly flipping those pages, wondering what other surprises await us in this thrilling new storyline.
Number 9. The Bachelor Life. While the previous run on Spider-Man felt like it was setting up a return to the relationship we've so often loved and that for a long time was Spidey's status quo, the long-awaited but relatively short-lived marriage of Mary Jane and Peter Parker, Zeb Wells' run on the series seems to have permanently quashed that idea. My heart, you can hear it breaking. I was really excited for Wells' run, but even I was bummed when I began to feel there would be no payoff for us Peter MJ shippers from Nick Spencer's story. Unless things start to move down a different path, it seems more than likely that Mary Jane and Peter Parker will never get together ever again, and instead MJ will continue to maybe be happily married to Paul Rabin and continue to fight crime. Now with randomized luck-based powers as the hero jackpot. Not something I ever thought I'd be saying, but here we are. Peter, however, seems to be destined to always have bad luck in love. He was with Black Cat temporarily after things fell apart between him and Mary Jane, but now even that is no longer a thing, so he is once more single.
If you're enjoying this video so far, you could support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Next up on the list is number 8, Spider-Man is the new Green Goblin. Our list introduces a shocking emergence of a new Green Goblin, and no, it's not Norman Osborn, but our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man himself. See, Kraven the Hunter and the Queen Goblin join forces in a revenge-fueled alliance, leading to a wicked twist. See, Spider-Man gets infused with Norman's dark legacy and memories, becoming the new Green Goblin. As the Amazing Spider-Man issue 33 kicks off, Peter Parker, now sporting the black suit, takes center stage with an intriguing monologue, delving into why he still clings to his infamous black suit, hinting at hidden depths to his motives. But Peter's not just here to talk about fashion choices. He's realized that Kraven's meddling has transformed him, and he's done playing nice. Our edgier Spidey goes on a rant highlighting how villains like Kraven perceive him as an easy target because of his friendly demeanor. But no more Mr. Nice Spidey. He's had enough and vows that no villain will escape his justice. Spider-Man's newfound determination doesn't go unnoticed. In a shocking turn of events, he ends up burying Kraven alive, marking his the first name off of his hit list. This darker persona promises a reckoning for villains who've long eluded their just desserts.
Number 7. Trav. Trav is one of many clones created by another new villain named Dominator X to be sold as living weapons. Now, like his teammates, the Cosmeteers, Trav's DNA was heavily modified from the baseline of his parent Daxamite species. However, while the genetic modification made his fellow Cosmeteers more powerful than a typical member of their species, Trav was born without any of the typical Daxamite powers, as Dominator X wanted to use him as a technopath, and the Daxamite weakness to lead would make him unsuitable for that role. Now, Trav was extremely bitter and resentful of being robbed of his powers, but he was also given extensive cyborg augmentation, including a bionic arm and a near indestructible artificial spine containing his mind, which could move independently and possess another living being as a last resort if his own body was destroyed. Now, in Superboy the Man of Tomorrow, Superboy has teamed up with the Cosmeteers, and they are all attacked by Dominator X, who unleashes his ultimate clone weapon, Infinity, on the young heroes. But Trav, being the leader of the Cosmeteers, reveals that he has Dominator X's previous clones under his control, and he uses them to tear Infinity apart. But then, Trav reveals that he's been making clones of his own, and specifically a clone of Superboy himself with all Superboy's strength but no personality or morals to guide it. He essentially made a giant living weapon for Trav or whoever gains control of it to use however they want, and that could be the beginning of a huge problem for the DC universe, and it's all thanks to Trav. Number 6, Tyrannos. Okay, so I may or may not be getting this correct, but the Elder God and Thor villain known as Tyrannos is a new and also not entirely new villain in Marvel Comics. His first actual appearance comes to us in Immortal Thor #1 from August of 2023, when the Elder God travels to New York, because of course he does, and here Tyrannos reveals himself to be from Utgard, or Utgard, and to be the Utgard version of Thor. So, essentially, to explain this, Tyrannos was an Elder God who was formed during the formation of the Earth. So yeah, he's from a long time ago. He was sealed away in Utgard for thousands of years by his sister, Gaia, who used to be believed to be Thor's mom, but now it's the Phoenix Force. Anyways, Utgard is a place that is outside of reality, and it is a place that we have actually seen before. Utgard is the realm of those who sit above in shadow, essentially the gods of the gods. These guys are the ones that Thor probably upset when he was Rune King Thor and basically destroyed the cycle of Ragnarok. Anyways, essentially wishing things to be better than they were, Gaia unlocked her sibling out of imprisonment alongside Utgard Loki, and she sent Tyrannos to Earth to test her son Thor, which is when he formed a Thor core, and it was so awesome. Number 5, Amalak. Coming to us in the very first issue of the most recent Power Girl series, an auction for artifacts from successful alien civilizations, set up by Power Girl herself in her alter ego, is ambushed by a group of space pirates, because of course it is. These pirates are led by a new villain known as Amalak. Now Amalak here has a vendetta against Kryptonians specifically. According to him, Kryptonians destroyed his home planet. He says that Kryptonians basically go and find other planets and declare them lesser than, and begin interfering in the natural evolution of that planet. He hates Kryptonians for their colonial ways, basically. He has a whole whack of anti-Kryptonian weaponry that he used to hold back Power Girl long enough for him and his crew to escape. Now it turns out that one of the artifacts at this auction was a piece of Power Girl's symbiote ship that sheltered her and raised her in space. The symbiote ship had managed to infect itself into Amalak and gave him a big old power boost, seemingly granting him a form of geokinesis as well as enough superhuman strength to actually do some real damage to Power Girl. But Power Girl did some damage back, and then Amalak basically ripped his own eye out and disappeared into the sea. So we have to see what will happen next with this character. In at number 4 today is Muzzle. Muzzle is another villain who may actually turn out to be an ally to the heroes given some time. Now starting off as a low-level criminal, Muzzle appeared in Marvel Voices Pride 2023 in the 8th mini-stories within this comic called No Trespassing, Beware of Dog. As part of a crew called the Commune, who are described as a Robin Hood-esque queer human anarchists who live and work together, this group broke into Stark Unlimited Pharmaceuticals to steal hormones to counteract the crazy wait times for trans healthcare in New York City. But they were also stealing insulin among many other things. As they were making their escape, they were stopped by none other than Spider-Man, which is when the Commune sicked Muzzle on him. Muzzle turns out to be the result of an experiment to create a human symbiote hybrid. When he was born with a large symbiote mouth, fangs, and a prehensile tongue, his mother was pretty freaked out and abandoned him to his grandparents, Dory and Grover. Because of his appearance, Muzzle was an outcast, and so he ran off to New York and joined the Commune. When Muzzle faced Spider-Man, he gave Peter a massive bite, was able to absorb Spider-Man's webs and the electric charge from Spidey's web shooters, and fire them back through his mouth. Muzzle was able to web up Spider-Man and subdue him, but Muzzle also came back and healed Spider-Man's wounds, taking them onto himself, so he may yet be a hero. We will see. Number 3, the Childminder. Okay, I'm gonna try my best to explain this one, but it has to do with time travel and DC continuity, and those are my brain's biggest weaknesses. So, here we go. Appearing in Stargirl The Lost Children #1 from January 2023, the Childminder is a time scavenger who was attracted by the many changes made to the timeline since the Flashpoint event. The big one for the Childminder was the 13, a group of heroes and villains active in the 1940s who were removed from the timeline by the Flash and Dr. Manhattan, and then saved by the Time Masters and accidentally reintegrated back into the timeline. I don't know. 8 of these 13 were the forgotten sidekicks of Golden Age heroes. As the young members of the 13 did not have a proper place in history, the Childminder was able to pull them to Orphan Island, an uncharted island in the Pacific Ocean where time was frozen. She also snatched some kid heroes who had not been erased at all. So, as one of the creepier villains introduced this year, the Childminder gives strong, like, Baba Yaga vibes, evil witch, Hansel and Gretel vibes, that kind of thing, especially with her whole goal of restoring her own youth and how she's like half bird. It's really weird. I need to do more reading on this, but definitely an interesting villain, and she's now in the form of an egg. So, that's something. In at number 2 today is Ogdu Freys. He may have a silly sounding name, but Ogdu Freys may very well be the Marvel Multiverse's next big bad. Ogdu is actually Ben Grimm, aka the Fantastic Four's The Thing's latest enemy, appearing in his 2023 series. Now, Ogdu Freys has laid claim to the Marvel Universe's most dangerous weapons and artifacts, and the most alarming of them is his newly revealed Psychopomp engine. This engine is harnessing the energy of the birth of Galactus himself. And with all that cosmic power at his command, Freys is trying to remake all of reality in his own image. Specifically though, Freys intends to rewrite the laws of the universe to remove any trace of entropy in a bid to erase pain and despair. Basically, he's trying to get rid of death. Now, this is something similar to what happened in Marvel's Cancerverse, and if it gains the attention of the many-angled ones, like it did then, well, it won't go so great. Even if that doesn't happen though, there are more than like 20 things that could go wrong when trying to remake reality like that, and none of it is good. Not that I know, because it's not real. Number 1, Dr. Hate. First appearing in Night Terror's Night's End #1 in October of 2023, Dr. Hate appears to be an inversion of Dr. Fate. Where Dr. Fate is an agent of the Lords of Order, Hate is an agent of the Lords of Chaos. Now, we don't actually know who it is under the helmet of Hate, but whoever it was made a deal with Amanda Waller to be empowered as Dr. Hate using the Nightmare Stone and the helmet, which she had her operatives retrieve during the Lazarus Planet and Insomnia's assault on Earth. As Dr. Hate, his goal is basically to further the cause of the Lords of Chaos, but thanks to Amanda Waller granting this individual the power, she requires Dr. Hate's assistance in her own schemes. He has a vast level of magical power, especially chaos magic, giving him control over the Red that allowed him to repress Beast Boy's mind when he took on the form of Starro the Conqueror. He has dimensional travel abilities allowing him to enter and exit the kingdom at will, and as well as summoning, flight, teleportation, and telepathy, Hate can leave a mark of chaos in a person which infects them with supernatural spores that transform them into a monster and allow him to control them. Very cool.
At number 10 are the Titans. After the events of this year's Dark Crisis, which culminated in the disbandment of the Justice League, what? Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman had a pep talk with Nightwing, wherein they basically tell him that it's time to straddle up and step up as the leader of a new team to protect the planet. The Teen Titans! I mean, no, not the just the Titans. Seems like the kiddos are all grown up now. And man, do they grow up fast. It's amazing what a lack of adjectives does to a name, right? Anywho, not only does this team bring back everybody from the original Teen Titans, including Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire, and Cyborg, but we've also got some newcomers like Wonder Girl and The Flash added into the roster. Personally, I was a huge fan of the original animated Teen Titans series, so to see the crew reunited after all these years just brings a tear to my eye. At number 9 is the New Avengers. The New Avengers roster this year is more stacked than it's ever been. It's pretty much the dream team. We've got, obviously, Tony Stark's Iron Man, Thor, Vision, T'Challa's Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, Sam Wilson's Captain America with the wings and everything, and the OP powerhouse of the group herself, Captain Marvel. Now, obviously, we're missing a few key players here, namely the non-powered powerhouses, those being Hawkeye and Black Widow. Also, the OG Cap is missing, who's actually still alive in this narrative. And also, most notably, our big green boy is missing. Now, it seems like the theme here seems to be only heroes who can fly are allowed into this club, with the exception of T'Challa, who's got his own bat planes. Panther planes? Anywho, even though we're missing the green Goliath this time around, we've still got all kinds of muscle with this Avengers lineup. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. It helps us get our video boosted to the algorithm, get seen by more people, and just all around, this is a nice thing to do, so go ahead, do that. At number 8 are the Super Twins. Meet Ortho Ra and Uzel Ra, descendants of an offshoot of Kryptonians called Phalosians. Hope I said that right. Now these siblings had a tough start. See, the Phalosians were already an alienated race, having been exiled from Krypton and settling on a new homeworld called New Phalosia. Now, sometime later, their folks and older brother, let's say, got eliminated when World attacked the planet, leaving the twins enslaved and isolated from their family. Now, life got really tough for them after that. They wound up living in cells under an arena, part of a race enslaved by Warzone culture. The warlord culture had brainwashed them into thinking that cruelty was strength and kindness was weakness. But now things took a turn when Mongol, the big boss, ordered the two siblings to fight each other to the death. Now they refused, but luckily enough, Superman swooped in to save the day. Long story short, teaching them that real strength comes from protecting others. Now after a crazy breakout and some heroic deeds, eventually they landed on Earth, where Lois Lane and Clark Kent took them in, and voila, these super twins were born. Life on Earth was a bit tricky, especially for Ortho, but they're learning the ropes and becoming quite the heroes. At number 7 is the Makers Council. Now, I know the Maker is typically seen as an evil Reed Richards, but the Makers gang in this one has beef with Dr. Doom and Kang the Conqueror, so let's just say that this team is morally ambiguous, to say the least. I mean, the Maker here is pretty dark, but I mean, generally speaking, he's got humanity's best interest at heart, even if it comes at seriously grave cost. Anywho, in this reality, the world is split into 7 super states, and after conducting a variety of tests with iterations of experimental societies within his base of operations, the Maker grew convinced that enduring peace on Earth was unattainable due to humans' inherent nature. Yeah, I get it, dude, we're all a bunch of monkeys. As a result, he established a secret council composing of the leaders of each of the 7 territories, and together, they manipulated conflicts and alliances among their nations to unite their respective populations. So in the present day, the Eurasian Republic served as the designated rogue state that unified the other territories as a common foe, with the intention for this role to be rotated between each territory over time. So basically, it's George Orwell's 1984, except instead of Big Brother, it's the Maker. Pretty bleak, but hey, I guess if peace is unattainable, then controlled everlasting war is the next best thing? I don't know. At number 6 is the 13. Back in the 1940s, these guys were a mix of good and bad guys doing some morally ambiguous things. But then, bam! Time got all wonky thanks to Barry Allen and Dr. Manhattan messing around, and these 13 got wiped away from history. Now, lucky for them, the Time Masters stashed them away in these kind of snooze pods to keep them safe. But fast forward a little bit, and a dude named Per Degaton muddles things up again, and these pods go kaput. These 13 peeps pop back into history before everything's completely fixed. Now the kicker here is that 8 of them were sidekicks to the OG heroes from the Golden Age. They got snatched up by Childminder and chucked onto, get this, Orphan Island, a place somehow stuck outside of regular time. Then there was some epic showdown shenanigans. They'd team up with Stargirl, Red Arrow, Hourman, and beat the bad guys. But since they can't go back home to their old tie lines, Hourman zaps them to the present, and they become the Young Justice Society. At number 5 are the Thunderbolts. Not to be confused with the original team put together by Baron Zemo, this new squad emerged after the Outer Circle got taken down. When Bucky Barnes, who got all the Outer Circle secrets, teamed up with a person called Contessa Valentina Alguera de Fontaine, that's a name. But guess what? She wasn't the real one. She was actually a fake. And they decided to join forces and make a gang called the Thunderbolts to crush the Red Skull and his whole operation. The crew got bigger when they got on board the Destroyer and the Red Guardian for a mission to wreck Red Skull's base in Argentina. And long story short, they won. They took out the Red Skull's main body and basically just wrecked the whole setup. At number 4 are the Super Kids. So the reason this team got together was because apparently they were too young to join the Teen Titans. It's definitely saying a lot. Now, their story is pretty wild. It all began when some bad guys tried to mess with time, trying to erase 2 of the core members, Animal Girl, and the Flash Twins before they could become heroes. But guess what? Backfired big time. Instead of erasing them, it brought them face to face with their future teammates, Robin and Superboy. And just like that, super kids were born. So let's break it down. We've got Animal Girl, also known as Maxine Baker, with her animal powers. Then there's Jai West as Surge and Ivory West as Thunderheart, the Speedy Flash twins, and of course Robin and Superboy rounding out the squad. At number 3 is the Spider Society. There was no way I was gonna make a video about new superhero teams without bringing up an entire collection of my favorite hero from across the multiverse, which made its debut in this year's Across the Spider-Verse movie. The Spider-Verse Society is led by Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, with this movie being his first cinematic debut. In fact, we got all kinds of Spider-Men who we were praying would make it to the big screen one day, from classics like Ben Reilly, Spider-Man's clone from the Clone Saga, to more obscure ones like Peter Parked Car. Love that. After surviving a universe-ending event, Miguel went around picking up Spideys from all over, their mission being to preserve the multiverse from any conceivable threat, all convening at Spider HQ on Earth 928, to which they travel to using their trusty little dimension-hopping watches. Because Spidey's a genius, don't forget. At number 2 is the Blood Syndicate. The Blood Syndicate, made up of former gang members from Dakota City, is no ordinary super team. They banded together to take down a menacing villain and then protect their turf, Paris Island. Each member had their own rough past, hailing from different gangs and areas of the city. But when this villain threatened to rule the criminal underworld with violence, these superhumans united against him. In their first standoff, the Blood Syndicate really did not do justice. They fought individually instead of working as a team, leading to their quick defeat and separation. However, Flashback, one of their own, took a bold step at traveling back in time to warn them about their impending loss. Now with this crucial knowledge, the Syndicate regrouped, launching a fierce coordinated attack, and this time they fought as a team, leaving the villain defenseless. Fate immobilized him, and Tech-9 delivered the final blow, putting an end to the threat once and for all. And coming in at number 1 are the Dark X-Men, who are back again this year. Madeline Pryor's new Dark X-Men are about to show no mercy, and it's gonna be awesome. Along with the Goblin Queen herself, we've also got Maggot, Archangel, Gambit, Gimmick, Azrael, M-Plate, Zero, and Havoc. Basically a dream team of the X-Men's most lethal heroes. So after the massive party called the Hellfire Gala, Madeline Pryor, who's got some history with the X-Men, leads this new strike team featuring some prominent OG X-Men members like Havoc and Gambit, who are back, but they've never teamed up like this before under such dire circumstances. Now, without giving too much away, this team is set to be among the X-Men's brutal incarnations. I mean, just look at the opening sequence of the first issue of this comic series with Madeline Pryor envisioning her global takeover. It's dark. To say it's dark is an understatement. As always, if there's a superhero team who was introduced in
10. Ash. Ash is really just known as Ash, I believe, in the comics, but he's also been separately identified as Ash the Second or Ash 2 as well, because there's already a Green Lantern who is known by the name of Ash from the New Earth continuity, who is considered to be, I would say, slightly at least more well known, having made more appearances. Ash is a thief, it's true, but he was known for being a mostly harmless, non-violent criminal, and when the Lazarus Storm caught both him and Superman up in it, he actually rose to the occasion and helped an unconscious Superman get to safety. However, he's still definitely learning how to be a hero, I'd say, if he's on that path. Superman, you see, was in the middle of apprehending him for stealing when the storm hit. And although Ash had helped Superman with the fallout from this storm, rescuing people and rounding up criminals, Superman said that, well, he'd still have to report him to the authorities for his earlier misdeeds. Ash then pretended that the powers he'd gained from the Lazarus Storm had worn off, and after Superman handed him over to the police, that revealed they actually hadn't, and used his powers, of course, to escape, stealing Superman's abandoned cape afterwards. Ash made his first and, I believe, only appearance thus far in Lazarus Planet Assault on Krypton issue number 1 in January, and was created by C.S. Picot and Scott Godlewski. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, if you love when we talk about superheroes, we got a superhero playlist for you and you can check that out.
Number 9, Iron Fire. First introduced in the Sins of Sinister timeline, John Ironfire became so damn popular that he made it into the Earth 616 timeline. So while the idea for this character was first seen in 2022, the actual 616 Ironfire came to us in X-Men Red Volume 2 number 11 in May 2023, and while it may be cheating, I am totally going to use him because he is awesome. Ironfire is a mutant from Morocco with the power to turn his blood into metal that he can then control. In one of his first appearances, Ironfire uses his powers to create metal claws, kind of like Wolverine, but his abilities are so much more than just making claws. Ironfire can use his metal blood to create horns, armor, and he's even created molten bullets that he can shoot at enemies. During Sins of Sinister, he serves as a right-hand man to Storm in her Brotherhood and lives hundreds of years into the future, eventually looking a lot like Odin. It's actually really cool. After the conclusion of Sins of Sinister, he arrives in the main 616 continuity, where it is revealed he is a member of the White Swords 100 Champions, an army that wages an eternal battle in the land of Amenth. Ironfire is the last of these warriors, arriving on Morocco with the White Sword's blade Purity. He warns the Iraqi mutants that Genesis, the wife of Apocalypse, is coming to conquer the planet, and he stands with them.
Number 8. Marge. Marge was a new hero from Subatomica. Not a place we go very often lately in the comics, I would say. She made her first appearance in the 2023 run of Scarlet Witch in issue number 3, first appearing in March of the same year. She was created by Steve Orlando and Sarah Pichelli. She's one of the folks who was in desperate need of help with no one else to turn to, and so, of course, Wanda's last door appeared before Marge, who chose to walk through it and found herself transported to Lock Hill, New York, and to Wanda's magic emporium there. Marge was one of the last survivors of her people, the Tri-Fan, who came from, of course, Subatomica. She was searching for an artifact known as the Sword in the Star that would help to rally her people against alien invaders known as the Nilan, who sought to conquer Trifa and claim it as their own home after eradicating the Tri-Fans. No longer blood related, but still sisters, Polaris and Scarlet Witch teamed up to help Marge in her quest, and succeeded in helping her find a symbol that could be used to rally her people.
Number 7. Tuva 2. In Marvel Comics, there is a race known as the Luminous, aka the Watchers. They were the first advanced species of the universe and committed themselves to observing and compiling knowledge on all aspects of the universe without any interference. Now, the most famous of these Watchers would be Uatu the Watcher, who hangs out on Earth 616's moon and just kind of observes, occasionally showing up when a story is going to be really big, or at least that's how it used to be. We have seen other Watchers before as well, but this year's Ben Grimm miniseries Clobber in Time introduced us to Tuva 2, the Banished One. Now, not a whole lot is known about him at first, except that he is battle scarred with some cool armor, various cybernetic enhancements, and a futuristic looking arsenal. It's later revealed that he broke away from the other Watchers seeking to become a god, and therefore assisted the new multiversal villain known as Ogdu Phraze. But Phraze is a villain, so when Phraze betrayed Tuva 2 and stole his all-vision powers, the Banished One decided to join up with the Thing to help stop Ogdu Phraze once and for all.
Number 6. Zephyrus. Zephyrus was a goddess who ended up becoming part of Mary Marvel of the Shazam family's new pantheons of gods. Zephyrus was known before that as an Olympian goddess of the West Wind. While it's presumed that in canon this of course would make her ancient in terms of how long she'd actually been around in the story, in regards to her first appearance in the comics themselves, she hadn't made herself known until 2023. She made her first appearance in Lazarus Planet Revenge of the Gods issue number 4 in April of 2023.
Number 5. Redwin. Marvel's new God series has been teased for months with backup stories in the pages of various Marvel Comics titles giving us glimpses into what's happening and the premise of this story. Each of the story's key players has shown up in these back pages, including what seems to be the main player, a guy called Wynn. Also known as Sir Redwin, Wynn is the avatar of the Powers That Be, an ancient entity or group that ultimately oversees all things strange and magical in Marvel Comics. Now, Wynn received the role of Avatar over a millennium ago, and has served faithfully in safeguarding the universe. Thanks to his long life and his knack for always landing in hot water somehow, he knows how to get himself out of a tight spot, even as he begrudgingly performs his duties. I've seen him often compared to DC's Constantine, and I think that's somewhat accurate, especially in the personality department. Win's position as the avatar of the powers that be is only one half of the overarching mythology introduced in Gods. The direct opposite of the powers that be are the natural order of things, and they oversee all things purely and perfectly scientific. Now, rather than having a single representative in the form of an avatar like Win, the natural order of things is represented by 100 immortal individuals who comprise the Centum, and one of them is Win's wife, Akomaki.
Number 4. Praviter Pravakar. Okay, so this might kind of be cheating, but I am just so excited for Spider-Man India to get some actual major time in the spotlight, and I loved his characterization so much in the animated Spider-Verse universe / multiverse, I guess, that I had to include him here. He actually does come from the same designated Earth number that his comic book counterpart comes from, but I think we still need to consider them alternates of one another, as the animated films still kind of have their own story, which is separate and unique from the comics. Spider-Man India was one of my favorites of the new Spider-Man characters we were introduced to in the animated film. He is Praviter Pravakar, a young man who has only been Spider-Man on his Earth for 6 months, and already seems to be a straight up master at it, having also been recruited by the Spider Society, which obviously Miles, that makes him feel pretty insecure as a hero. He first appeared in the animated sequel to Into the Spider-Verse Across the Spider-Verse in June of 2023. His creation credits are the same as the version that first appeared in the comics in 2004. He was created by Christopher Miller, Phil Lord, and Dave Callahan.
Number 3. Dimitri the Science Boy. Win, as the avatar of the powers that be, and the Centivars of the natural order of things are all bound by an ancient deal that dictates that the avatar and each Centivar must have a proxy from the other side. For Win, his proxy is the analytical and socially oblivious Dmitri Krakow, or Dimitri the Science Boy. Dimitri has always been drawn to technology, which would actually make him perfect for the natural order of things, but instead he became the begrudging chained apprentice to Win. Jonathan Hickman described Dimitri as an orphan who fell into his path out of tragedy, and he's always been looking to find out what happened during a mysterious event that propelled him into the role he has now. What's cool is how Win and Dimitri get sick of each other sometimes and will just go separate ways until they have to come back together, like when, thanks to Win, they both got thrown into a ghost prison, whatever that means, and Dimitri got sick of Win, going to Sevalith and getting in a relationship with a vampire, while Win went to a hot spring for mystics in Jotunheim until they needed to come together once again for this story. One of the best things about new heroes like the ones on this list is that we get to uncover more and more about them as their comics come out, and I think Dimitri may be one that I'm going to pay a lot of attention to.
Number 2. Mia the Magic Girl. Mia the Magic Girl is a new hero in the world of comics. She made her first debut appearance only recently in November in Gods issue number 2, so she is super duper new. Initially, we didn't know much about her when she was first announced as a character, and I think part of that is also because her identity and role in the story is meant to be somewhat mysterious. We're supposed to uncover it as the story unravels. But with her appearance in Gods issue number 2, we got to know a little bit more about her and her origin story. She is inherently magical, and her birth parents are largely unknown to her, as she spent most of her childhood growing up in an orphanage after she was abandoned. The Centum has taken an interest in studying her and has offered knowledge in exchange for her permission to do so.
And finally, in at number 1 today is Circuit Breaker. During the Lazarus Planet crossover event, a volcanic eruption leads to Lazarus resin raining down and empowering people all over the world. One of those people was Jules Jourdain, a new trans-masculine superhero going by the name Circuit Breaker, who debuted on Valentine's Day 2023. Now, we haven't seen much of Circuit Breaker yet, but he will reportedly wield a power called the Still Force, a counterpoint to DC's Speed Force, which gives super quick heroes like the Flash their power. Now, first introduced in 2018's Justice League number 2, the Still Force is a cosmic force based on inertia, and people who tap into it can suspend motion and even aging, which Gorilla Grodd did when he temporarily stopped the expansion of the entire universe. Being a trans character in DC Comics, we don't know yet how much relevance Jules' gender will have to the overall plot of his stories, but it's reflected in his character design in a few subtle ways. The coolest being the lightning bolt designs on his vest and chest, intentionally designed to resemble top surgery scars. While indie comics have been lush with representation for a while, mainstream superhero comics have lagged far behind in representation, and as one of DC's biggest new heroes, Circuit Breaker is a welcome addition.
Number 10. Wasp. Wasp. A character who I feel like could be cool to have as an Avengers member once more would be Janet Van Dyne. And to be clear, this list is not going to be a list of people that have never been Avengers. Honestly, almost everyone has at this point. So we're going to be people that we'd love to see return to the team. Some of which have been less of an Avenger though, so keep that in mind. I love Jan, and I just feel like she deserves to have some time back on this team. Her run back in the day was actually quite iconic, and for a while, Janet was even the team's leader herself. It would be cool to see her more prominently featured in the spotlight by getting a place on the current team today. I feel like Jan is a character who recently has fallen somewhat by the wayside, and her brief appearance in She-Hulk made me realize just how much I miss her. And if you're thinking, Amanda, she wasn't in the Disney Plus streaming series, I mean the recent comic series. I know we also have Nadia Van Dyne, Janet's sort of adopted stepdaughter, running around, the daughter of Hank Pym, who Jan looked out for when she first resurfaced in the US, only to find out her father had recently sacrificed himself to basically protect the world. But you know, that doesn't mean that I still don't miss seeing the original Wasp in action. In fact, I would still really love to see that. I think we could have Jan and Nadia, and maybe they could both be on the Avengers. I don't know, I'm down for that. Double the Wasps. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we're doing here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when we talk about Avengers, I know I do, be sure to let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9, War Machine. I mean, come on, if we're gonna have Carol on this team, I'd really love to see her joined by Rhodey. As far as I know, these two are still back together, and Carol had a fling with Doctor Strange during the time they were apart, but in the end, they got back together. But that was also a few issues ago in her series, the 2019 Captain Marvel series, which is currently still ongoing, I believe, although it might be ending soon, written by Kelly Thompson. However, you know, I also haven't been following along with this series the entire way, so if I miss them breaking up again, please let me know in the comments. Assuming they're still together, or you know, even if they're not, I would just love to see Rhodey and Carol on an Avengers team together. I think that'd be super cool. I want to see it. Number 8, Shang-Chi. Personally, I feel like not enough is being done with Shang-Chi in the comics right now. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was a big part of the reason I got into this character, and I think he might be a cool hero to have on the Avengers team. And I know what people are going to be saying, well, he's had comic series recently, but I feel like we haven't had a comic series that's been able to get like really up and off the ground with Shang-Chi, and I feel like putting him on the Avengers, that could be a good way to build him up right now. I selfishly want him there so that everyone can get to know him a bit better and fall in love with the character like I have, so that I can get even more Shang-Chi on the big screen as he becomes more beloved in the comics. Very selfish, but that's what I want. Truly, having delved into some of his comic book origin and history, he is a fascinating character, and I just believe the world needs to know about him. Shang-Chi initially in the comics was introduced as the son of Fu Manchu, now known in the comics as Zhang Zu up until his death. Zhang Zu wanted his son to follow in his footsteps, but once Shang-Chi realized the truth of his father's alignment, his intentions with the world, finally learning that he was actually kind of the bad guy, Shang-Chi decided to leave his home, giving up everything he had ever known and loved to forge his own path in life. Which was a pretty big moment too, because he literally had to give up like everything if he left. That's what his dad said. He said, if you turn your back on me, there's no coming back. As such, Shang-Chi has struggled with finding his own path and with the darkness inside himself, and I just would love to see how that would play out on a team, on an Avengers team specifically. Number 7, Sentry. Sentry is a character who I haven't really gotten to see in action for some time, not since King in Black, where he was basically used to just show how powerful Null was. Honestly, poor Bob. He was killed as a result of his involvement in that event, and then was escorted by Jane Foster's Valkyrie to Valhalla, as he was deemed a hero worthy of resting in such a place. Finally, he'd get to rest in peace. Unfortunately for Bob, he was not really allowed to rest, and instead his corpse was shortly thereafter captured and used as a host for 100 million insane ghosts, a play on him having the power of 1 million exploding suns, no doubt. However, even more epic, because this is 100 million insane ghosts. So now we have Sentry back, but not really. But I've always found him to be such a complex and interesting character. I think he'd make for a really cool addition to the Avengers team right now, once fully returned to life, of course. I'm not saying that I want the 100 million insane ghost version of Sentry on this team. Although, what would that even be like? Number 6, Spider-Man. Spider-Man has been an Avenger before. Heck, he's even kind of been an X-Men, or, you know, X-Men adjacent, we could say. What does he bring to the team? Well, other than years years of experience as a crime fighter and his own powers and abilities? His star power, of course. I personally think Spider-Man helps to elevate the team as a whole when he is part of it and make it so that more are inclined to basically buy this book, buy that Avengers comic. I'm not saying the Avengers need this right now because I think this team is going to be amazing and I think the creative team behind it is also stacked. I'm just saying it might be a nice bonus for us to have. Plus, more Spider-Man is honestly always a good time for me, so I pretty much could always have Spidey on almost any team and I'd be having a good time. Number 5. Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl has been Avengers adjacent in the past and has been a member of the Great Lakes Avengers, but I would also love to see her on the Avengers mainstay team. Why do I think Doreen would be so great here? Well, she's often known for being unbeatable, so in that regard, the Avengers would likely never again lose a battle, which sounds pretty great. And, you know, they have lost in the past, so maybe they could use Doreen's help. And I want to see her amaze the rest of the teammates with all of her friendship making skills. Often, that is how Doreen as Squirrel Girl manages to defeat even the most terrifying villains like Galactus. Villains that are so ginormous that you would think there's no way Squirrel Girl has a chance. I know Squirrel Girl may seem like a joke hero to some, but I really do believe both her abilities and her characterization leave her with a lot to offer in Avengers book. My one request for the Avengers team that includes her, I'm not saying it has to be this team, but just in the future I'd love to see her on the team, would be that I would like to have Ryan North on as the writer. Pretty please, Marvel? Can Ryan North write Avengers at some point? That would be super cool. Number 4. Invisible Woman. So here's the thing. Susan Storm actually was an Avenger, but as far as I know, only very briefly. She joined the team along with her husband Reed Richards from Avengers issue 300 to 303, so very briefly. Usually the FF though are too busy being, you know, members of the FF, but if there is anyone I could want to join the Avengers team from the Fantastic Four team for a more lengthy period this time around and without anyone else joining her from the Fantastic Four, it would be Susan Storm, aka the Invisible Woman. She is hands down the powerhouse of the Fantastic Four, which is saying something because honestly all 4 members of that team are really quite strong in their own ways. I would love to see Sue on a powerhouse roster for the Avengers and see what the approach would be for how that's written. It's not easy to write characters as powerful as Sue is and make their struggles in a fight actually feel grounded. Although I guess there is a lot to work with outside of defeating baddies when it comes to the Invisible Woman and her story and her life. Number 3. She-Hulk. I know She-Hulk was basically just on the Avengers and left to go have some adventures of her own in her own book, which I have been loving, although I'm a little bit behind right now, as she got back to living her own life as a lawyer and just having a super fun time. But I also am kind of interested to see what Jen would be like as an addition to this current team. I guess I'm just kind of missing some of the dynamic of the old school team a little bit. Jen and Jan both appearing in She-Hulk's book, and Janet helping Jen out by letting her stay in an older apartment that Jan basically forgot she owned, made me feel a bit nostalgic for some of those classic older days, with them both serving on the Avengers. That could be a cool thing to revisit. Also, Jen is back to her old self right now in the comics, not currently gray, not currently super insanely jacked, although still very jacked, and not currently suffering in the intelligence department when it comes to her and her Hulk form. To me, this would be a really fun time to see her fighting alongside her friends on the team. Or if not the Avengers, put her on some kind of team book. I also miss Jen's days working with the Fantastic Four, so perhaps if she's not on the Avengers, this could be a good place for her, a return to her days as a temporary member of the FF. Actually, why not just take Susan Storm and put her on the Avengers and then take Jen, put her on the FF? What do you think? Number 2. Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman is one of my personal favorite superheroes, so of course I would love to see her back on the Avengers. Also, Carol is leading the team going into 2023, so what better time for Jessica to return than now? I'm actually surprised that Carol didn't think of asking her BFF to rejoin the team at the beginning of this run. I know were I in Carol's shoes, I personally would've. Jess would probably be the first person I'd be calling. Spider-Woman has been on the Avengers, and of course so has Carol Danvers, but I don't think they've ever been on the team at the same time. I don't know if they have been on the mainstay Avengers team, but I either way, this is something I would like to see now, whether it's again or whether it's for the first time ever. They may have both been involved with the Avengers, you know, the main Avengers during Dark Reign, but I don't think that they were both on the team together. And I also remember that one time that Jessica teamed up with the Hulk, and I feel like Carol was there for that, and I think that was Avengers with Tony as well, where Spider-Woman makes Hulk make the sandwich, but I don't know, were they ever on the team at the same time? They should do it again if they've done it before. Number 1, Blue Marvel. For how powerful he is, I just feel like Blue Marvel gets really underutilized and under-showcased. It would be really cool to see him as a member of the Avengers, as I feel like he could really be an impressive powerhouse on this team. Blue Marvel was retconned to be one of the classic heroes who was asked to retire as a result of rising racial tension in the 1960s. However, he would later return to heroics in the 1970s, joining up with the first, once again retconned to be the first, iteration of the Mighty Avengers team. He's been a member of the Mighty Avengers and Avengers World, but he himself has never been a part of the main Avengers team for some reason, which honestly feels like a mistake to me. Why would you not want Adam Brashear on your team? He's both insanely intelligent and insanely strong. Feels like a win-win to me. Number 10, Miles Morales Spider-Man. Miles Morales' new series as Spider-Man is already being hyped by fans. Now, it's only got 2 issues out thus far, but fans are already loving Cody Ziegler and Federico Vincentini's take on the character. Some are even saying this is some of the best work, if not the best work, that Vincentini has ever done. I personally love Miles as a character, and I was honestly sad to see his last run by Saladin Ahmed come to a close, but hearing all the buzz around the newest series now just makes me really excited to see what this next chapter holds for Miles in both his personal life and his crime fighting career. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love all things Spider-Man, Miles, Peter, Ben, all the Spider people, folks, Jessica Drew, there's a lot of Spider-Man stuff. Be sure to check out our Spider-Man playlist, where we have all of the good Spidey content for you. Number 9, Captain Marvel. This is a series I have been wanting to read for some time, and it's only been bolstered by the fact that I've only really heard great things about the comic and the fact that it's gone on for so long, which is usually a good indicator in terms of when you're deciding whether or not you should buy a comic or get into it. If it's got a long run, it usually means other people are buying it and loving it, so that's a good sign. The other thing I will say is anytime I have popped into this comic, because I have read a little bit of it here and there, bits of issues, I've loved everything I've read, so yeah. Captain Marvel follows the journey of Carol Danvers, both in space and on Earth. It is written by Kelly Thompson, who I also will say I generally love everything that she writes, and has gone on for 45 issues thus far, with solicitations actually taking it till at least issue number 48. And I believe we can go till at least issue 50 with this one. I mean, 100 issues though of Captain Marvel would also be insane. So if we could do that, I'd be here for that. I love Carol, so. Number 8, Star Wars Yoda. Star Wars Yoda is a comic that I would heavily recommend people read. I just finished the first story arc myself with issue number 3, that sort of arc comes to a close, and I loved it. I'm not sure if Yoda has ever had a comic before, but based on what I know, he hasn't. Kind of tried to look into it a bit and I couldn't find anything. Granted, I'm not as immersed in the world of Star Wars comics as I would like to be, so I could be wrong about that. However, I have wanted to get more into Star Wars comics for some time, and so far this has proven to be a series that I would recommend as a good and semi-familiar place to start for those of you that also want to jump into something. We all know Yoda, but what we don't know is about all the insane adventures he's gone on during his life, which is what this series dives into as Yoda reminisces on his past while living on Dagobah, waiting for Luke to one day arrive. Star Wars Yoda is by Cavan Scott, with art by Nico Leone. Also, I know Marvel is not the only one to have ever done Star Wars comics, so if there are any Yoda comic series that existed prior to this one, please let me and all of us know in the comments, because I would love to check them out if they do exist and I somehow missed them in my research. Number 7, Wasp. This is a character I've been talking about for a while in regards to wondering where her main series was at. I mean, Wasp has had series, but a lot of them tend to be team-up series with, you know, Ant-Man. Or just, where is Wasp in general, I guess I should say. I feel like we haven't seen Jan for some time in the comics, and it's weird, especially considering that, you know, she was once, for a long while, a core member, and of course, one of the founding members of the Avengers team. In fact, Jan even led the Avengers for some time as as well. The last I spotted Jan was in the current She-Hulk series, and even there, she was just making a cameo. I remember when she showed up, I was like, wait, where has Jen been? Huh? She also doesn't have a team up with Jen or anything. She's just helping Jennifer out with finding an apartment while Jen focuses on landing back on her feet and getting her own place. Also, how is Jen and Jan not a team up series that has happened yet? Or has it happened and I somehow missed it? Cause that kinda sounds like a great idea for a team up series. Wasp, however, is finally back in a series where she also gets to team up with the inheritor of her mantle, long lost daughter of Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man, Nadia. I also believe this is Janet Van Dyne's first ever solo series? Which is wild to me, although even here she's sharing the series with Nadia, so there is that. Wasp not only has amazing covers from Tom Riley, but also is written by Out of This World writer Al Ewing with art by Kate Niemczyk. The only sad news here is that it's only a 4-part miniseries. And who knows, it could always lead to a longer running series, or it could get an extension and become a longer running series, so fingers crossed. Number 6, Venom. Venom is so wonderfully weird right now, and I mean that in like the best way possible. It's gotten really elevated in terms of the, I would say, existential crises that Eddie Brock and even Dylan Brock seem to be experiencing. If you are a Venom fan, if you have been following along with the King in Black event, the Absolute Carnage event, and Donny Cates' run on Venom, then this series really is for you. It continues along that path with, I would say, pretty great reverence, I think, for what has come before, but it also offers us a glimpse at something weirdly dark and different through the eyes of writers Al Ewing and Ram V, who both offer their own takes on the two characters that we have come to know as Venom, both Eddie and now his son, Dylan. Number 5, Immortal X-Men. Immortal X-Men is one of those series that you really you need to read it, especially if you want to be truly in touch with all the wild stuff that is happening with the X-Men right now. Truthfully, my first draft in terms of my picks for this list were pretty much all X books, probably no surprise to anybody. Like 70% of what my initial picks were for this list, prior to me tweaking it, were just straight up just X books. But after removing a few to give you a more balanced list in terms of recommendations, Immortal X-Men was one that I simply had to keep on here because, I mean, it's just that good. Now, this isn't even one of the books that I personally have been following along with issue to issue. It's not on my personal pull list. My partner is reading it, but has been keeping me informed, and I do pop in every now and then on an issue, and honestly, every time I do pop into it, I am in love with what I read. It is so good. Kieran Gillen and Lucas Wernick are both crushing it on Immortal X-Men, and these covers by Mark Brooks are jaw-dropping. Read it, or else miss out on all this mutant magic that's so good. Not actual magic, but you know, just like chef's kiss magic. Number 4, She-Hulk. What can I say? I made a promise to keep only one comic between Marvel and DC on my pull list for this year, as I attempt to focus more on collecting and supporting indie comics, part of a New Year's resolution of mine, and She-Hulk was almost the one that I simply had to keep. It was a really hard decision for me to not keep this comic on my pull list because I love it so much. It really feels like a return to the classic She-Hulk many of us first fell in love with in the comics. She's sassy, she's playful, she's fun-loving, hardworking, and she can also easily kick your butt. Like, this is my favorite version of She-Hulk. It's so good. She-Hulk came out swinging with writing by Rainbow Rowell and extremely consistent artwork from various talented artists throughout, and reminds me once more why I love the Jade Giantess. And even though I'm not reading it physically right now, you can bet I'm gonna be continuing to read it digitally because it is super good and it deserves my support. And you should join me in reading in whichever format you prefer as well. Just trust me. Number 3, Fantastic Four. I mean, when they said that Ryan North was going to be doing FF, I had to start reading and collecting it. I love Ryan North, also, woo, other Canadian. Alas, because of my current commitment to really focusing on only collecting indie comics this year, as one of my New Year's resolutions as I was saying earlier, I'm not collecting this one physically anymore. But I'm still planning to read along digitally, and based on the tone I got in the first issue, I know this is going to be a great run. Although it does hurt me to not grab those stunning covers by Alex Ross off the shelves. And not just on the covers, the inside side art by Ivan Coelho and design elements by Carlos Lau are also phenomenal. I think to really get a sense for this series, I'll simply share some of Ryan North's thoughts on the FF, which he writes about on the final page of his issue number 1. There were 4 guiding lights I had in mind for the Fantastic Four, and I put them at the top of the very first document I sent our fearless editor Tom Brevoort. They went a little something like this. Number 1, the Fantastic Four are fun. These are people who know they can help people and are here to do exactly that. No angst, having superpowers rules. Number 2, the Fantastic Four are adventurers. Exploring the unexplored is fun and gratifying. The unknown and the impossible are crazy interesting. Number 3, the Fantastic Four can do anything. If we want to recapture the feeling of the FF as they were in the 60s where anything could happen, we have to let what's come before be there to inspire stories but not limit them. Number 4, the Fantastic Four are accessible. This is a comic for people who've read every Fantastic Four appearance since 1961, but it's also one that welcomes people who have never read a single Fantastic Four comic before, or even a single Marvel comic. We have deep-cut references to what's come before, but you won't feel left out if you don't know it, because this is a comic for everyone. Number 2, Sins of Sinister. Sins of Sinister is an event I have been eager to witness since almost the birth of Krakoa. Man, I'm gonna miss Krakoa when it's gone. Oof. Ever since Sinister was plotting on gathering all the samples of mutant DNA that he most wanted, I've been eager to see what master plan he has in store. While in Hellions, his Chimera was born, revealed, and sadly destroyed, now he's going even bigger with his ambitions. Not just trying to create something that is extremely powerful, but actually trying to harness others' powers in order to bend reality to his very will, which I gotta say is pretty wild. Sins of Sinister is an event with multiple tie-ins for you to check out and enjoy, but it also has its own self-titled issue as well, and a follow-up denouement series, Sins of Sinister, and a follow-up denouement issue, Sins of Sinister Dominion. The event is written by Kieran Gillen, who, as I already mentioned, is killing it on Immortal X-Men right now. Also, this event is massive when it comes to art, with so many artists involved, including David Baldion, Federico Vincentini, Joshua Cassara, and Stefano Caselli, among others. Number 1. Demon Wars. Demon Wars comes to us from writer and artist Peach Momoko with translation and contributions by Zach Davison. Peach Momoko is one of Marvel's Stormbreakers, younger artists and creatives that Marvel seeks to showcase and promote throughout their comics. For those of you who haven't checked it out, Demon Days was the previous series that Momoko did, which I honestly also fell in love with, and which precedes this. Also, Momoko's art is like some of the best art I think ever. It's so good. While I would recommend reading Demon Days prior to reading Demon Wars, I would also say that you could probably read Demon Wars without it if you really wanted to, and you would still enjoy and appreciate the story that Momoko and Davison are telling us here. The coolest thing about the Demon books, though, is that it is set in its own alternate universe of Peach's creation. To give us this beautiful and mysterious world, Momoko has taken inspiration from Japanese folklore and blended it together with the superpowered beings and stories, mutants especially, of Marvel's universe. While Demon Wars started in late 2022, it will likely wrap earlier this year in 2023. Although honestly, I want it to go on forever. It takes a while in between issues though, so you gotta be a bit patient, but it's worth it. Nightbuster is new to superheroing, but is super cute, and of those that are on our list is one that I know super well, considering I have been continuing to collect Nightwing all this year. It was my only comic of the big two that I allowed myself to keep collecting. She is Olivia Desmond and was the daughter of Roland Desmond, aka Blockbuster, and get this, Jezebel Jet. Remember Jezebel Jet? Yeah. She is the daughter of those two villains, and yet she will probably grow up to become a hero. Her foster father is Nightwing, who also rescued her from having her soul claimed by Neron. Neron had basically acquired a contract for Olivia's soul, which Roland had promised Neron in exchange for his own upon his death, because he didn't want his soul to be claimed, so he was like, how about I give you my daughters instead? It was all super creepy. When Blockbuster was killed, Neron came a-knockin', and fortunately, Nightwing with some help from the Titans and Oracle was able to keep Olivia safe. She would be revealed to have inherited her father's super strength and agreed to train and live with the Amazons on Themyscira, taking up the mantle of Nightbuster. Olivia made her first appearance in Nightwing issue number 98, the 4th volume of the Nightwing title, and she was created by Tom Taylor and Daniel DiNucquello. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when we talk about superheroes, know that we have a whole gigantic superhero playlist for you to check out. Number 9. Rec Rap. Oh my goodness, I love Rec Rap. While I honestly wasn't a big fan of the Dark Web Spider-Man based event overall, Rec Rap was a part of that event and was a character that we got from it that honestly, I loved. Rec Rap is a demon who was inspired by Spider-Man's Peter Parker to become a hero himself. He initially was known by the name of Parker Man before he adopted the mantle Rec Rap, which of course is just Parker backwards. Rec Rap. His powers are similar to Spider-Man's, combined with that of a symbiote, and instead of web slinging, he prefers to call what he does with his organic webs web wanging. I really hope we see more of him in the comics. Rec Rap made his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 17 of the current volume, which we know officially as volume number 6 of ASM. Rec Rap was created by Zeb Wells and Ed McGuinness. Number 8. No One. Probably one of the most iconic superheroes to make their debut appearance in 2023 for me was the vigilante we've come to know as No One. Very mysterious. They are not exactly your typical hero, but I think that's what makes them so interesting. No One is from the comic of the same name and made their first appearance in said comic in issue 1 back in March. The character was created by Kyle Higgins, Brian Buccellato, and Geraldo Borges. They don't necessarily seem to have any superpowers per se, but are an extremely skilled fighter and rely on tech, gadgets, and their skills to accomplish their goals. Their focus is on calling out those who are corrupt and holding them accountable. As the saying goes, no one is above the law, but of course they are no one. The whole series centers around the mystery of who's under the mask and all of the events that happen around them, and that's also part of what makes the story of No One so interesting. That and the fact that it's a multimedia story told through the comic and interchanging episodes of a podcast, where various characters are actually voiced, so you can actually also hear what they sound like. There's also a website that you can go to, No One's website, where if you know the right code, you can learn more about their secrets as well. So the immersiveness and interactivity of this story are also a huge part of what I love about it. The story centered around No One, which is set in Pittsburgh. Number 7. Rasputin 4. If you are a House of X / Powers of 10 fan, you might be wondering how we can consider Rasputin 4 as a new hero. Well, that's because this version of her is technically an alternate in comparison to the first version that we saw of her in that beginning to the Krakoan era. This version of the character comes from an alternate reality created by Sins of Sinister. A version of Mr. Sinister created Rasputin 4 as a chimera hybrid mutant from the samples of 5 genetic powerhouses, also like in the beginning of the Krakoan era. However, after doing so, he realized he had made himself obsolete and began to feel regret for what he'd done to get him to where he was. He actually freed Rasputin from her conditioning, confessed his sins to her, and begged for her help in getting back a device that would basically return the world to how it was during the Paradise Krakoan era, which he of course had destroyed. They did not succeed in their mission, but Rasputin would eventually have her mind sent back to the time of Krakoa, allowing her to capture Sinister and have him punished for his crimes by the Quiet Council. Rasputin made her first appearance in Immoral X-Men issue number 2 and was created by Kieran Gillen and Lucas Wernick. She is a combination of Colossus, Quentin Quire, Unis the Untouchable, Talon aka Laura Kinney, and Shadowcat aka Catherine Pride. Spider-Boy. Love him or hate him, Spider-Boy is here. Although it seems a little weird in regards to the timing of when he arrived, considering that he came in after Marvel had decided to get rid of Ben Reilly because, well, too many Spider-Men / Spider-themed heroes. Too many. And then enter Spider-Boy. Interesting. Spider-Boy is Bailey Briggs. He made his first appearance in Spider-Man issue number 7, the current run, which is considered to be the 4th overall volume of purely just Spider-Man, the Spider-Man title. Not to be confused with Amazing Spider-Man, which is also about Spider-Man, but it's just a different title. I know it's confusing, but just go back to the 90s, you'll be even more confused. Got Web of Spider-Man, you got all these comics. His DNA was spliced with the spider by Madame Monstrosity, which gave him spider powers and turned him into a human spider hybrid. He was created by Dan Slott and Humberto Ramos. Number 5. Deadeye. Deadeye is the nephew of Amanda Waller. He's not exactly straight up a hero, but he also isn't exactly a bad guy either. It's kind of complicated. And he's pretty cool looking and definitely new as of this year, so I'm gonna include him here on this list. He made his first appearance in Lazarus Planet Next Evolution issue number 1. Oh boy, Lazarus Planet was a weird time, but hey, at least we got some cool characters like Deadeye out of it. Deadeye's name is Archie Waller, and he's only made a couple of appearances, so we don't really know too much about him just yet. His power set is based in the realm of psionics, having psychic and telepathic powers, but he also has demonstrated super strength as well. He can travel to the astral plane, travel to different dimensions, and also has a certain level of cosmic awareness. He was created by Chuck Brown Brown, and Alita Martinez. Number 4. Misery. Misery is the symbiote who ended up being bonded to Liz Allen. A copy of the symbiote also existed and was bonded to a chimpanzee named Grace. Initially, Grace the chimpanzee, once stabilized, sought to get revenge on Liz, but Liz was in essence saved by her newfound abilities through being bonded to Misery. Misery is a pretty powerful symbiote due to them being a combination of both the anti-venom symbiote and Carnage, which both also oppose each other. Thanks to them constantly battling and attempting to destroy one another and healing, Misery has an insane healing factor. Misery made their first appearance in Cult of Carnage Misery issue number 1 and was created by Sabir Perzada and Francesco Motorino. Number 3. Trinity. We love ourselves a heroic alternate version of a superhero's child. And if you are one of the folks who really love potential superhero kids from alternate futures, then you're gonna love this new hero, Trinity. Trinity is Elizabeth Lizzie Marston Prince. She is the daughter of Wonder Woman and an unknown man in a potential future. In her reality, she is also the future leader of the Justice League. She grew up alongside fellow super kids Damian Wayne and John Kent, who she looked up to as they were kind of like her older brothers. Her powers are similar to her mother's, and she also possesses the 3 lassos of fate. Lizzie was created by Tom King and Daniel Semper and made her first appearance in the legacy numbered issue number 800 of Wonder Woman. Number 2. 97. 97, or Ikomaki, is one of the new immortal and mysterious beings we've come to know through Jonathan Hickman's God series. She is part of an epic war that has gone on for, well, seemingly forever, between sort of the god of science and the god of magic. 97 serves the god of science, known as the natural order of things, as one of their main agents, being the last of the prime number centivars in their service. They have 100 centivars total, and she is the last prime because she's, number 97. She even gave up her relationship with the love of her life, Wynn, her once husband, who was secretly the avatar of the rival god of magic, which is known as the powers that be. 97 made her first appearance in Uncanny Avengers issue number 1, the 4th volume in the Uncanny Avengers title. She was created by Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schitti. Number 1. Kyle the Catboy. Kyle the Catboy is an interesting one. He's more of a neutral figure, but he does end up working with heroes at one point, so I'd still say he's more hero than villain, so I'm gonna count him. And honestly, most of the bad stuff that he's done in his life hasn't really been focused on hurting people or anything like that, but more on surviving. He was a criminal who spliced his DNA with a cat, becoming a splicer. He hails from the Future's End reality and ends up teaming up with Batman there, who in this reality of course is Terry McGinnis. His name is a variation on Selena Kyle, with it being Kyle Salinas. Kyle was also at one point taken in by John Constantine and taught magic by his mentor, but while he thought Constantine actually cared for him, he later learned that Constantine had actually unloaded all his curses on him so he could die peacefully and without burden. Ouch. Catboy first appeared in Batman Neo-Gothic issue number 1 and was created by Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing, and Max Dunbar.
Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly is a clone of Peter Parker, the famed Spider-Man, created by the villainous Jackal. Ben assumed the identity of Scarlet Spider after separating himself from Peter's world for 5 years, and upon returning to New York to aid Peter's sick Aunt May, he reunited with Peter and became his ally. Later on though, while Peter was away, Ben encountered a man named Gus, who mistook him for Peter because, they're clones, and demanded payment for an unknown debt. Ben denied that he was in fact Peter because he was, but he also wasn't, but Gus continued to harass him. Then, sometime later, Ben, along with someone named Janine, who is now known as Hallows Eve, ended up living in limbo with this Gus man. And then of course, because how else are you supposed to have a hero turned villain origin story, Gus continued to harass Ben, leading to him being beat up and then being brought to the Goblin Queen. And by that I mean Ben beat up Gus and then brought Gus to the Goblin Queen. After Madeline consumed Gus's soul, Ben declared his intention to consume Peter Parker's soul. Yeah, that's a thing that has happened. But also just look at the monster that is now known as King Chasm. It's a freaking powerhouse, okay? That thing is terrifying and I want to be him so badly. Okay, I know that also he's technically a villain and that's why he'd be at 10 on this list instead of higher, but since Ben was a hero, was a Spider-Man, I think that it's allowed. Plus, it's not like you can do anything about it now. It's already on the list. You can't reverse the edit. I'm sorry, YouTube doesn't have that feature yet.
Number 9. Power Girl. I mean, all of the Super family have recently got got somewhat of a makeover with their new looks, Power Girl included. Now they all wear matching jackets. Power Girl likewise has a new look that features a full one-piece bodysuit with a new Super Family matching jacket. Fits right in. She also got some new powers as well, being affected like many others by the Lazarus volcanoes that were like spewing all over the planet. There's just Lazarus raining down everywhere. Power Girl was given psionic abilities during the event, which is quite different for her, going from being a physical powerhouse to a psionic rookie, honestly, to start. Personally, I'm more of a fan of Kara's classic look, but I do like the idea of the Super Family all having a piece of clothing that they share, and I always love a good team jacket look, so I'm definitely here for the jacket part at least. Still, I feel like you could alternatively do this with, you know, the S logo that they all wear or matching capes. Power Girl not only got a new look and a new power set here, but she also got a new partner in heroism as well, teaming up with Omen.
And it ain't Ben 10. Ah, look at that, 2 Bens on this list. Or dare I say, 11 Bens. Because Ben 10 is a popular American animated TV series that originally started running in 2005. The show features the adventures of a 10-year-old boy named Ben Tennyson, yeah, that's actually his name, who discovers an alien device called the Omnitrix. The Omnitrix allows Ben to transform into various alien creatures, originally with 10, hence the name, each with its own unique set of abilities, powers, and weaknesses. And then throughout the series, Ben and his friends, Gwen and then later in a sequel series, Kevin, face off against various villains who seek to use the Omnitrix for their own purposes and just normal run-of-the-mill bad guys like a dude who is mutating animals at one point. But along the way, Ben uses these alien powers and learns how to actually work with them to help others, protect the planet, and ultimately become a hero. It also spawned multiple spin-offs, movies, and video games, cementing its place as a beloved franchise. And personally, I love Ben 10, and I have a Ben 10 jacket. I can't wear it on camera because it's green, which sucks because I love the jacket. But I mean, in 2023, he has like the look of his most recent series, which seems to be the 2014 Ben 10 Omniverse, which has a cartoon style I don't really vibe with, but hey, Ben 10 is still iconic. Or if you want to go a different route, you can go with the Ben 10,000 way of thinking, since Ben 10,000 just has 10,000 different aliens in his Omnitrix, but that actually takes place in 2025, which means that he would look relatively the same this year. There you go. I just wanted to talk about Ben 10, okay?
Number 7, Photon. Well, definitely an homage to her classic look, Monica Rambeau has also received her own suit makeover recently. Personally, I liked her look with the jacket before this, but this one does seem a bit more practical. I mean, I've worn full bodysuits with jackets over top. Let me tell you, it tends to get really hot really fast. One of my favorite things about her newest look, as seen in her new 2023 series, is actually her hair. I love how it is adorned. It makes it look like Monica has like little stars in her hair. It's so pretty, it's so cool. As happy as I am to see this new marvelous look, I'm also even more happy to see Monica as the star of her own series. She is a character who I've been saying for a while I would love to see in her own solo book. Of course, I've been saying that, and then of course the same year that I decided to take a year off from collecting printed Marvel and DC superhero comics, she gets her own series. That timing. Still, I'm very happy to see it, and I hope that you are all collecting it out there.
And it's 6, Green Arrow. Okay, now this is a bit of a weird one, I will admit, but within the context of the Arrowverse, the Green Arrow does have a new look in 2023, okay? The new look is alive. Kind of, technically speaking. Okay, during the 9th episode of The Flash Season 9, Stephen Amell made a return as Oliver Queen. However, this time around, he was still the Spectre. So the Green Arrow is a totally different hero, but also he's technically a god as well, but like with a couple limitations. So like diet god, if you will. Oliver isn't really dead, they kind of retcon that. He's rather just existing outside of time and space, but he's only capable of interacting with the physical world when the multiverse is in danger, which is kind of interesting as well, since Legends of Tomorrow had an episode where the Legends stumbled upon a location that was being used to film Supernatural, and in the Supernatural episode, The French Mistake, we see Sam and Dean being sent to a reality where Supernatural is a show. So that could have been the same Earth, okay? Since the multiverse is a thing for them too, okay? Do you see where I'm going with this? That would subsequently mean that Chuck wiping out all the Earths in Supernatural was their interpretation of Crisis, and that Oliver rebooting the multiverse gave them their multiverse back as well, as we see in the spin-off series The Winchesters, okay? Where the big bad of the first season was threatening the multiverse. So, where the hell was Oliver during that, when those Earths were in danger, okay? Come on. Or were the Akrita from that show just Ramsey's infected cells? Something to chew on. But yeah, I wanted to talk about it. I haven't been here in a while, okay? I wanted to talk about Arrow and the Flash. I'm sorry. There's a lot of green that I can't talk about because of, well...
Number 5, Storm. Oh my goodness, I am super here for Storm's new look. Although, honestly, when am I not here for a Storm look? I'm actually trying to think of a time that I didn't like what Storm was wearing, and I can't. But if you feel like Storm has had some questionable looks, let me know them down in the comments, because maybe I'll find something that I don't like Storm in. I doubt it'll happen, but it could happen. Right now though, I'm definitely a fan of her current 2023 look. It's a look that has been evolving since the dawn of X, and even though it is only one era in a long history of X-Men stories and eras, I will say, even in comparison to the beginning of the days of Krakoa, Storm looks quite different. And I mean that in the best possible way. Storm went from having a sleek, polished, modern design to what I would describe now as a more modern take on her punk era look, and yeah, I super love it. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that subscribe button.
In it for the Flash. There is no doubt that the Flash has gone through many suits over the past few years, especially with the show having so many different versions for the Scarlet Speedster. However, with the show ending, the character is getting a whole new look in the upcoming Flash movie starring Ezra Miller. And while the cheap joke here would be saying that the new look is actually just the psycho behind the mask, the suits we're seeing in the trailers are pretty different to the suits that we've seen in the show that's been on for nearly a decade. The jokes made in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover were about the actual possible uses for the different suits, with Grant's version making the comment that Ezra's was more protective and that his seemed like safer, whereas Ezra said that Grant's was more breathable and comfortable, which are qualities that seem to be embraced and enhanced in the movie versions, with the two Ezras having qualities related to like the lightning color of their speedster. The blue lightning being more in line with the original DCEU suit, since that version had blue lightning, but the orange or yellow lightning version being closer to Grant Gustin's version, which makes me think that they might have actually wanted Grant in that role, especially given why Ezra Miller was in the news, but I feel like Grant was probably like, yeah, no.
Number 3, Daredevil. Daredevil is currently in the midst of his Red Fist saga, and to match, he has a completely new look. What is new about it? Well, it comes with a pretty cool hood and some ninja-esque trappings, such as his face mask, which also helps him to match with the other Daredevil currently in town, Elektra. Elektra has been Daredevil as well for a while, ever since Matt had to go to prison to do some time. Which also means we have another new Daredevil look, because Elektra is Dee Dee as well right now, which is also still relatively new to comic readers. And not only that, but Elektra is also now Matt's wife. But despite that bit of what you'd think would be weird and unconventional marital bliss, Matt has currently been having a rough go, as he also was forced to fight against other heroes that he normally would simply call his colleagues and his friends, such as Spider-Man, who he actually kind of backstabbed in issue number 10 of Daredevil recently when Peter offered him an olive branch. Ouch. Oh, and Matt also is sporting a pretty wild beard right now, and I gotta say, it's a bit crazy, but I'm here for it. I love how it's just like his mask and then beard.
But ultimately, in at number 2, stature. Going from superhero daughter to superhero is one thing, and that's the story that was started in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. However, that's not the only change that Cassie Lang went through in 2023. Cassie was always fascinated by the quantum realm and eventually invented the quantum satellite, which led to her and her family being shrunken down into the realm and being trapped in Axia. Despite her father's reluctance, Cassie was determined to help the freedom fighters and became Stature, using her size-changing abilities to help fight against Kang's empire, but unfortunately, she and Ant-Man were eventually captured by MODOK, which was just, that was a thing that happened in the movie. Oh boy. And were then interrogated by Kang, who threatened to harm Cassie unless Ant-Man actually like retrieved the multiversal engine core, and it's a whole weird thing, okay? But Cassie's bravery and determination helped everyone in the movie. But despite her activism, the character was actually entirely recast post-Endgame by Marvel Studios, which caused actually a bit of turmoil online, since the original actress who played Cassie in Endgame was not informed about the decision. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? Love Catherine Newton, but given how the character had already appeared, it would make sense for the original actor to figure that they'd show up as them in the future. So yeah, you should probably inform them, since you've already kind of made that connection with them, but you didn't. So there you go.
Number 1, Superman. In truth, I was trying to keep this list not just super family members for my DC points, but the reality is that they probably have had some of the most dramatic makeovers in 2023 so far in regards to DC Comics. I could talk about some of the Titans redesigns, but even then, those outfits pretty much have all throwback elements. I mean, Donna Troy is almost 1-for-1 busting out one of her old costumes, although I do love those modernized takes on some of their older looks. When it comes to John Kent though, who is also Superman currently in the comics, formerly known as Superboy, like Kara's Power Girl, he recently received a different look and some changes to his powers. Although he didn't get a full-on new power set, he did get a more blue Superman-esque look when he gained the ability to supercharge, even overcharge, his solar energy stores, making him even more powerful than he was before. Not that he really needed that upgrade, goodness knows. However, there is a cost to using his newfound power stores. Doing so leaves him completely drained, making him basically human for a short while he charges back up. Also, Connor told me that John Kent was another character who was also recently recast in Superman and Lois, so he also has a completely new look on the CW side, as well as Michael Bishop takes over for Jordan Elsas, who left after season 2. So there you go, everyone's getting recast.